Discover the touching love story that revealed 5 incredible life-changing transformations. In the heart of Cedar Grove, where the crisp air carried whispers of nostalgia, Sarah toiled under the weight of her unyielding world. Her hands, calloused and worn from countless shifts at the diner and the grocery store, fought tirelessly to keep the lights on and her teenage son Caleb pursuing his dreams. Every day felt like an uphill battle, her heart heavy with worry. And yet, despite the tumult, Caleb's passion for music shone like a beacon, a glorious glimmer breaking through the shadows of their struggle. "Mom, listen to this." Caleb's voice rang through their small living room, bright and hopeful. He strummed his guitar, his fingers dancing effortlessly over the strings, conjuring melodies that tugged at the heart. For a moment, Sarah's burdens lifted, and she let the music wash over her, a soothing balm to her frayed nerves. But as the notes faded, reality crashed in again. Could she truly support this dream of his? While battling her own demons, a storm loomed over Cedar Grove, not just in the skies but within their family. Sarah's relationship with her father, a bitter war veteran haunted by memories and mistakes, felt irreparably strained. He was a man lost to the past, stubbornly clinging to resentment. The annual Harvest Festival was approaching, a time meant for joy, but for Sarah, it felt like a parade of desperate faces wrapped in economic despair. "I want to perform at the festival," Caleb declared, his dreams reaching for the stars while Sarah's heart sank further. She wanted to lift him up, but every note he played reminded her of her father's failures to protect their family from the hardships that had stolen their hopes. The tension between them simmered, wrapped around unspoken words and drifting glances. Suddenly, disaster struck. A severe storm swept through Cedar Grove, mercilessly claiming homes and shattering the community's spirit. But from the wreckage, Caleb found inspiration. His music became an anthem for their pain. With each strum, he breathed life into the chaos around them, turning sorrow into song. Just as Sarah began to see glimpses of healing in their shared struggles, she confronted her father for the first time in years. The fury surged within her as she faced the man who once towered over her with pride. But she also felt a deep ache for reconciliation, for understanding. It was a battle of old wounds and unspoken love, and both stood at the precipice, grappling with the shadows of their past. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. In the days that followed, hidden truths emerged from the ashes. Her father's sacrifices during the war, the weight of economic collapse, and the scars they both bore began to unravel a deeper understanding. Each note Caleb played not only echoed their plight but drew the townsfolk together, awakening a much-needed resilience. Slowly, Sarah was beginning to stand on the edge of forgiveness, knowing they were more than their past mistakes. But just as the first glimmers of hope broke through their bleak surroundings, an unexpected incident threatened to shatter everything anew. What would happen now as the festival neared and the unresolved tension loomed like an uninvited guest? In the flicker of Caleb's talent and Sarah's repressed love, the story hung heavy in the air, waiting for one final note to be played. Caleb stood in front of the mirror, his guitar slung low across his shoulder, running his hands nervously through his tousled hair. The Harvest Festival was hours away, and anticipation bubbled fiercely within him. He practiced the lyrics over and over, each word tethered with hope. This could be the moment, his moment to show Cedar Grove that dreams could spark alive amid despair. As he plucked the strings, the music rose and flowed around him, filling the cramped room with a sense of possibility. He thought about his mother. So many times, she had pushed him to pursue his passion, to reach for more than just surviving. Yet, at the same time, her worries weighed heavily on him. He wished he could lessen her burdens, even if just for a moment. "Caleb." Sarah's voice shattered through his thoughts, pulling him back to reality. "Dinner's ready." He took a deep breath, setting his guitar down. Heading into the kitchen, he found Sarah at the table, setting the last plate. Her face bore the marks of stress, shadows under her eyes contrasting her gently determined smile. She noticed him, and for a moment, it felt like the weight of the world lay just between them. "That looked good," he said, trying to lighten the mood, with a smile emerging from his nervous heart. She chuckled softly. "Thanks. Not gourmet, but it feeds the soul." Caleb's heart twisted at her words. It was always about survival, something they both understood too well. "Mom, I know this festival means a lot. About the performance, I really want to do this." "Of course. You should." Her smile faltered slightly, revealing a vulnerability he hadn't noticed before. "Just come back safe. Okay? Mom, I'll be fine." He reached across the table, grabbing her hand. "You've taught me to face the world, I'll carry that with me." The moment lingered, their hands clasped, warmth passing between them, binding their hopes and fears. But then, the door creaked open. Sarah's father walked in, a silhouette shadowed by a storm of his own. "Dinner," he barked, as he tossed his weathered cap onto the floor. His eyes fell on Sarah and Caleb, lingering just a beat too long. Tension thickened the air. Old wounds resurfaced, and resentment crackled like static electricity. Caleb wanted to escape the room, but something held him firm, a whisper of courage rising with the urgency of his upcoming performance. "Dad, I'm playing at the festival later." "It's going to be..." Caleb's voice trailed off as he searched for the right words. "It's going to be important." The old man's expression shifted, but only for a moment. "Is that so?" he replied, his tone rough. "What good is music if it doesn't feed you or keep a roof over your head?" Caleb's heart sank. It was a challenge wrapped in concern, the older man's way of expressing love through skepticism. Sarah shot her father a warning look, but silence hung like a heavy blanket, muffling the underlying feelings. "Enough," Sarah's voice broke through the moment, fierce yet trembling. "Caleb, you need to follow your heart. And if anyone in this family knows how to support that dream, it's me." With that, her tone softened into something almost fragile, and Caleb sensed an opening, a bridge forming between their worlds. She believed in him, and maybe, just maybe, through this performance, they could all begin to heal. Emboldened, Caleb stood taller. "I'm going to share something real tonight. Something that brings us together." His words hovered in the air, filling the space with both clarity and fear. But as he glanced at both parents, the musical struggle within him transformed into a flicker of hope. Yet, deep down, he knew one performance wouldn't erase a lifetime of scars. As evening began to settle over Cedar Grove, the festival buzzed to life with laughter and chatter. Caleb felt a thrumming pulse of energy. He stepped closer to the stage, filled with adrenaline as the crowd swelled, a sea of familiar yet distant faces ready to receive whatever he had to offer. But just as he took a deep breath, ready to embrace the impending moment, a shout pierced the cheerful noise, a flash of trouble emerging in the crowd that threatened to pull them back into old pains. What awaited him on that stage could either forge new bonds or unearth the past. Would he brave the moment before him, risking everything to transform their story into something beautiful? Caleb's heart raced as the crowd surged, excitement and unease mixing in his chest like a storm. He glanced around, searching for the source of that shout. The sound danced upon the breeze, slicing through the festival's warm glow. A knot formed in his stomach. He caught sight of a group of teenagers near the back. They seemed restless, tossing drinks and laughing loudly, but beneath that facade, Caleb felt tension simmering. It was familiar, a mirror to the way things used to be in Cedar Grove. His gaze shifted back to the stage, now bathed in golden light. With every step he took, he felt the weight of his mother's hopes against the gravity of his father's shadows. The stage was an altar, a place where dreams lit flames or burned down entirely. "Caleb!" a voice shouted from the front. It was Nick, an old friend whose laughter had once echoed through their childhood. But tonight, it seemed heavy with a different sort of gravity. You still gonna play that sad song? His tone was sharp, a mix of jest and something else, perhaps fear. That fear rippled through the crowd, and Caleb could feel the unseen walls that separated everyone here. He had come to share something beautiful, but now it felt as if he were standing on the edge of an abyss, about to leap into darkness. Taking a deep breath, Caleb stepped onto the stage. The lights shone down as he planted his feet firmly in front of the microphone. The guitar hung in his grip like an anchor, grounding him in that moment. He scanned the sea of faces, catching glimpses of both familiar eyes and those of strangers, people who had their own stories mingled with Cedar Grove's "Hey, everyone." His voice, though slightly shaky, resonated in the stillness that followed the initial shout. "I know things haven't been easy for all of us." He locked eyes with Sarah across the front row. Her encouragement ignited a fire within him. "But music has always been a way to bring us together, to heal past wounds." A murmur swept through the crowd, some nodded, while others whispered, caught in a moment of shared history. This was his chance to connect the dots that spiraled through their collective lives. As he strummed the first chord, a hush fell over the festival. The notes flowed like water, spilling out memories of laughter, heartbreak, and hopes lingering in the air. He poured every ounce of himself into the song, every fear, every dream. And then the magic happened. He watched as the audience responded. Some brought smiles, while others braced against the melancholy. Faces softened with recognition, a collective understanding forming between them. It reminded him that they were all struggling against something. But then, just as he began to feel the rhythm of unity, that same voice from before interrupted once more. Nick stepped forward, fists clenched, anger boiling beneath the surface. "What's this, Caleb? Are you really going to stand up there and act like it's all okay? Like you can just play your feelings away?" Caleb's heart paused, doubt rushing in like a flood. The room shifted, friends turned to friends, questioning glances exchanged. Would all his effort amount to nothing in the face of doubt? "Nick, I'm not pretending," Caleb shot back, his voice steadier than he felt. "I'm here because we all have to start somewhere. This isn't just about me, it's about all of us finding a way to feel whole again." For a heartbeat, silence blanketed the stage. Caleb's pulse thundered louder than the crowd's earlier excitement. It was a pivotal moment, the kind that could shift everything. He could either retreat or push forward. He would not back down. He began to play again, fingers dancing over strings, sending vibrations of hope into the evening air. Could he inspire them? Could this performance turn into something that truly mattered? Just as he leaned into his next verse, a new sound emerged, a voice, faint but growing stronger, as if the festival itself had begun to breathe alongside him. "Let's listen," someone murmured from the crowd. A wave of shared determination rippled through them. Caleb's heart soared, pushing him to unleash everything he had. But what would happen if the walls finally crumbled? What truths would surface when those unresolved feelings came to light, and the night transformed in ways he could never predict? Caleb's fingers danced over the guitar, every chord resonating with his heart. The moment, electric and raw, flowed through the festival. It was as if the air itself held its breath, waiting for something, a spark, a revelation. He closed his eyes, letting the music carry him. Each note emerged like a heartbeat, building a bridge toward understanding, toward healing. The crowd swayed gently, caught in the ripple of his emotions. Caleb opened his eyes, scanning familiar faces, trying to soak them in. Sarah's smile shone like a lighthouse amid the dark waves of uncertainty. Their past threaded between them, binding more than just friendship. It was hope, possibility, and an urge to reclaim what had been lost. But Nick's challenge hung heavy in the air like a storm cloud. The tension was palpable. It echoed in every corner of the festival ground. Caleb felt the weight of it, how easily music could turn to silence in the face of doubt. He didn't want to falter, but doubt poked at his resolve. "Art is not about answers," he finally declared, feeding off the energy surrounding him. "It's about questions. It's about revealing those hidden parts of ourselves we've locked away." He strummed fiercely, aiming to weave a tapestry of shared pain and potential redemption. The crowd began to react, whispers mingling with laughter, a sense of community flickering like a flame catching wind. He poured his heart into the music, each verse unfolding like petals, each chorus lifting spirits from their roots. Suddenly, it was as if the crowd joined him, a chorus he couldn't hear but could feel in the air. A young girl started to sway, her eyes closed in concentration, as if she were summoning the power of the moment. Others followed suit. Caleb felt a rush surge through him. This was the change, the connection he sought. "See, Nick?" he implored, still finding his way through this unique dialect of feelings. "We're all in this together. Music doesn't solve everything, but it helps us face ourselves. Don't you see?" Nick stood frozen, uncertainty flickering across his features. It was a moment where vulnerability met opportunity. The crowd was reaching for something beyond the tangible, they were reaching for each other. Emboldened, Caleb leaned into the final refrain, closing his eyes once more, feeling the lyrics roll off his tongue like an invocation. "We can heal, we can cry, we can laugh. Together." The power in those words was intoxicating. Caleb could feel the momentum shifting, life swirling around them, energies weaving into something stronger. The song ended, and silence fell again, but this silence was different. It seemed alive, bursting with unspoken thoughts and feelings. Caleb opened his eyes, taking in the quiet faces where before there had been just noise. He watched as the spell he cast began to take effect, life stirring beneath the surface. "All right, let us not stop it now," called out a voice from the back. "More." Someone else picked up the chant, building momentum, turning the silent awe into a chorus of unity. And just as the energy peaked, someone in the crowd screamed a shattering cry that sliced through the air. It brought everyone back to that simmering tension, that looming threat from earlier. Caleb's heart raced again, pulse quickening. What had happened? The cheer of togetherness balanced precariously on that edge of uncertainty, the crowd divided, some rushing forward, others backing away. Caleb felt his gut twist. Was the festival about to turn chaotic? "Please, not now," he whispered, gripping the microphone tighter. Just then, out of the chaos emerged a figure standing just beyond the light, expression desperate yet fierce. It was Sarah. "Wait. Caleb." She shouted, her voice cutting through the din, bringing his thoughts to a standstill. What was she about to say? What truth was she ready to reveal? The crowd hushed, a singular focus shifting toward her, and Caleb felt the adrenaline rush through him. Would this be the answer that would tie them all together, or an unraveling of what they had just begun to build? Caleb could only wait. And wonder, heart pounding as the moment stretched before him, holding the potential for change. "Caleb." Sarah's voice was urgent, slicing through the tension like a knife through tension in the air. The crowd shifted, a wave of anxious anticipation washing over them. Caleb stood frozen, the mic gripped tightly in his hand as he tried to read the expressions on her face. "Caleb, it's about," she hesitated, breathing heavily, her gaze darting over the faces of strangers, friends, fans, and some who looked as confused as she felt. "It's about what's been holding us all back." Her words hung like a promise in the air. Caleb's heart raced. He had seen glimpses of her struggles, the weight she carried silently, but this was different. There was a boldness in her voice that ignited something within him. With every soul in attendance now fixated on them, Sarah took a step closer. "Remember that night?" she began, her voice trembling yet fierce. "When we thought sharing our truth would ruin everything? I was so afraid. But I see now every one of us is standing on the edge, wanting to jump into something real." Caleb's breath caught as he recalled that night, the heartbreak, the secrets, the untold stories. He felt vulnerability wash over him. He wasn't just a musician anymore, he was part of a larger narrative that spanned beyond his own experiences. For the first time, he felt the weight of hope mixed with fear pressing down on him and the crowd. "Tonight, we're caught in this moment," she continued, toxins of past regrets and burdens beginning to surface. But what if we let ourselves become free? What if we use this moment to let go of all that fear? She looked at him, her eyes fierce with determination. Caleb felt the spark. The tension buzzed in the air, captivating like an electric current. Her words reached into him, stripping away the layers of self-doubt he had wrapped around himself. Could they really do it? Could they share their truths with the world, and perhaps change their lives and others for the better? I want to know you all, to hear your stories. She turned to the crowd, arms outstretched like she was welcoming them to a deeper connection. Let us open the door to what we've been hiding. Together. The crowd murmured, some faces registering shock, others lightening with understanding. Caleb felt the stir of a collective breath, a moment suspended in possibility. Sarah, he called, his throat tight. Are you sure? What if we expose ourselves and it hurts? Then we face the hurt together. She shot back fiercely, the moment heavy with rise and fall of breaths in rhythm with her heart. Growth comes from pain. And healing doesn't happen in silence. We're not just performers, we're a community. A fire ignited in Caleb's chest, and he nodded slowly, feeling the weight of her words wrap around his spirit. Maybe this was the moment. With their past haunting them, they could step into the light that flickered at the end of the tunnel. Let us show them, he said finally, voice rising above the gentle murmur of the crowd. Let us break these walls today. Caleb and Sarah exchanged a look, a silent agreement that cracked open something deep and buried. The musicians behind him started to strum softly, preparing for the next song, one that would build on what they'd just shared. Yet, just as Caleb opened his mouth to sing, an unexpected shout erupted from the back, pulling the crowd's attention again. No. Wait. A new figure burst into view, Nick, eyes wide with a mix of concern and fear. What do you mean, together? Are you ready to share all your baggage? He challenged, tension tight against his brows. Caleb could feel his pulse quickening again. Would Nick stand in the way of this moment? Could fear extinguish their newfound hope? Everything is on the table, Sarah shot back, voice steady, unwavering. And that includes you, Nick. The stakes were rising. Caleb's heart hammered, bracing for an unexpected confrontation. What would Nick reveal now? Would they crumble, or would they build something lasting from the shards of their past? Caleb could only watch, breath bated as the stage filled with energy, waiting for the next wave of truth to crash over them. Nick took a step forward, his arms crossed defensively across his chest. The crowd watched with bated breath, the electricity hanging thick in the air. He seemed torn, a conflict brewing in his eyes. Caleb felt the weight of the moment pressing down on him, a mix of anxiety and anticipation twisting in his stomach. Don't you see what you're asking? Nick's voice was low, almost strained. This isn't just about words, it's about laying ourselves bare. What if we share all the hurt, and it changes everything for the worse? Caleb's heart sank. Memories rushed back, stories of heartbreak, the stinging pain of betrayal, the guilt of unspoken truths. He could sense Sarah's determination, but Nick's words hung in the air like a storm cloud, threatening to darken their moment. Sarah stepped toward Nick, her eyes pleading but resolute. I know it's scary. But isn't it scarier to keep hiding? We've been tethered by our traumas for too long. If we don't face them, they will always hold us back. The crowd murmured again, the energy shifting. Some nodded, others still wore expressions of uncertainty. Caleb locked eyes with Sarah, and in that fleeting moment, everything clicked into place. He realized the transformation they needed was not just for them, but for everyone out there, waiting to feel connected and understood. Nick, Caleb said softly, trying to navigate the tension. It's okay to be scared. But we owe it to ourselves and to each other to be honest. That's how we grow. Isn't that what we've always wanted, to be free of our own chains? Nick hesitated, looking back at the faces in the crowd. He could see the hope painted on their features, but also the vulnerabilities. It dawned on him then, the truth behind the facade they'd all held onto for so long. All right, he said at last, his voice trembling but stronger than before. If we're doing this, we do it together, all of us. A wave of relief washed over the audience as they collectively exhaled. They were on the brink of something monumental, a moment that might finally shatter the silence that had wrapped around them for far too long. Caleb raised the mic to his lips, sensing the flow of passion rising within him. He gestured to Nick and Sarah, and in that moment, they became a unit, a triad of strength ready to face the ghosts of their past. Then let us start sharing, he declared, heart racing. Let us tell our stories, not just for us, but for everyone who feels alone in their struggles. With that, he began to strum the opening chords of a song he'd written from the depths of his soul, a melody infused with longing, pain, and hope. The words poured out, raw and unfiltered, an anthem for the brave souls gathered before him. Felt Sarah's voice soar beside him, harmonizing with his as Nick joined in, vulnerability sculpting their every note. Together, they wove not just a song, but an affirmation of healing in motion. The crowd caught fire, voices rising in unison, together in this cathartic release, but just as they seemed to rise, a loud crack echoed from behind. A neon sign flickered, drawing everyone's eyes as it collapsed, crashing to the ground. The moment froze as they turned, the realization of danger knocking at the door, threatening to shatter everything they'd just built. What had they truly opened themselves up to? What was lurking beyond the noise, and would fear strike again just as they found the first glimmers of freedom? The collapse of the neon sign sent a surge of panic through the crowd, their gasps echoing in the stillness that followed. Caleb's heart raced. One moment, they were breaking free, and now they were on the brink of chaos. Sarah. Nick. He shouted, his voice strained as he scanned the faces in the audience. The crowd began to shift backwards, instinctively moving away from the shattered glass glimmering in the stage lights. Stay close. Sarah called out, her voice unwavering despite the fear bubbling beneath the surface. Nick had instinctively positioned himself near her, his presence a solid buffer against the tide of uncertainty. Caleb's palms were sweaty, fingers still curled around the microphone. This was not how he envisioned the night, the harmony of their songs shattered by an unexpected threat. But as he looked into the frightened eyes of the audience, a fierce determination ignited within him. They couldn't let fear win, not now. Let us keep going, he stammered, forcing his voice to steady. We can't let this moment slip away. He glanced at Sarah and Nick, who nodded in agreement, their resolve shining through the anxious expressions they wore. With a deep breath, Caleb began to strum again, this time a different melody. He opted for something slower, more grounding, a lullaby for a crowd teetering on the edge. Sarah interlaced her voice with his, blending harmonies that caressed the air, wrapping around those unsettled by the sudden chaos. Nick joined in too, his deep voice anchoring the fragile moment, reminding everyone that together, they were unbreakable. And slowly, as they poured their souls into the music, the crowd began to calm, their collective heartbeat syncing with the soothing rhythm. Just breathe, Sarah implored, her eyes scanning the audience, looking for the lost expressions in need of comfort. This is our moment. We are stronger together. And slowly, people began to sway, letting the music wash over them one beat at a time. The initial shock gave way to an acceptance that crawled through the crowd like sunrise breaking through the dawn. Caleb found strength in their unity. He could feel the energy shift, a collective hope turning the tide against the remnants of fear. The music flowed like a current, relentless and pure, binding them in a way words alone hadn't accomplished. Yet, just as they found their footing, a figure emerged from the shadows of the crumbling sign. A man, rugged and wild-eyed, was now part of their moment, standing there, the darkness clinging to him like a worn blanket. His sudden presence sent a ripple through the air, Caleb's heart clenched at the sight. Who was he? What did he want? His face was a canvas of pain and desperation, echoing the very fears they had just begun to face. And just like that, everything changed yet again. What have you done? The man yelled, his voice trembling. You're the ones who woke them up. Caleb's breath hitched. This wasn't just about their stories anymore. Something far bigger loomed over them, and they had unknowingly crossed a threshold none of them could comprehend. "Who are you?" Caleb asked, stepping closer, heart pounding. But the man just shook his head, eyes wild with fury. "You have no idea what you've unleashed." As questions piled up in the air, Caleb exchanged worried glances with Sarah and Nick. How could they fight against the darkness they were only beginning to understand? What was happening to the fragile hope they had just forged together? The answers were out of reach, but one thing was clear: the fight was just beginning. Would they stand strong against whatever had been unleashed? The crowd shifted again, uncertainty spilling from the man like dark clouds on a stormy night. Caleb's heart raced. Was it fear or something deeper, an instinct to protect those he loved? He took a tentative step forward, wanting to understand everything this stranger hinted at. "What up?" Caleb asked, his voice firmer now. "What's happening?" The man clenched his fists, anger radiating from him like heat. He looked around, eyes darting from person to person, as if he could sense the fragile threads of hope weaving within the crowd. "You think your music binds you together? You've disturbed something that was meant to stay buried. Dark spirits are rising because of your sound." Nick shook his head, disbelief etched across his face. "You're not making any sense. We're just trying to bring people together. To lift them up." "Together?" The man spat, a wild laughter escaping his lips. "You're unwittingly the orchestra for their awakening." He pointed at the shattered sign, remnants of neon lighting flickering like dying stars around them. "You're playing with the very forces that haunt this place." Caleb's thoughts raced. He could feel how the crowd's energy pulsed with a new intensity, one of confusion laced with fear. He looked to Sarah. She was already moving closer to the man, trying to listen, to reach him somehow. "Just tell us how to fix it," she said softly, her voice cutting through the chaos like a lifeline. "We didn't mean to disturb anything. We just wanted to share our music." A glimmer of vulnerability flashed across the man's wild eyes as he took a breath, and for a moment, the rage seemed to dim. "It's too late for that. The echoes of your songs are already rousing them." He pointed to the shadows gathering around the edges of the crowd, dark tendrils flickering against the stage lights as if something were probing its way into the world. Chill gripped Caleb's spine. "What do we do? Can we stop them?" "Only if you know the right song, the one that will seal them away again." He took a step back, eyes darting toward the audience, his face etched with desperation. "But can you handle the truth of what you might find?" Their hearts drifted closer together as they formed a circle, a bond they had fought to establish. "We have to try," Nick declared, squeezing Sarah's hand. "We've come this far. We can't let fear win." Caleb looked at his friends, his family. This was now about more than music. It was about the fight for their lives and the lives of everyone surrounding them. "What's the truth?" he asked, his voice steady, though the tremor within threatened to collapse him from the inside. The man hesitated, uncertainty flickering in his eyes. "You will face reflections of who you are. You'll have to confront the shadows lurking within yourselves. Only then can you fight the shadows without." Caleb clenched his fists, steeling himself. They had to trust in each other even as they faced their inner demons. He took a deep breath, looking over the crowd, who seemed to mirror his resolve. "All right," he said, gripping the microphone tighter. "Let's put our trust in the truth, then." But just as he was about to strike the first chord, a loud rumble echoed from the depths of the crowd, a low, ominous sound that churned their insides. People turned their heads toward the source, faces pale and taut with fear. "What's happening?" Sarah gasped, her voice barely above a whisper. From within the shadows, figures began to emerge, their forms twisted and grotesque, half-formed as if dragged from nightmares. The night was no longer just a concert, it was becoming a battlefield of souls caught between light and dark, faced with something he couldn't yet understand. Caleb felt the tremors of doubt creeping in. Would the truth strengthen them or tear them apart? As the shadows neared, he knew there was no turning back. "Are you ready?" He called to Sarah and Nick, gritting his teeth against the fear that threatened to unravel him. But before they could answer, the shadows lunged forward, swirling around them like a tempest. The moment of decision had arrived. What would they uncover in the depths of their own minds, and could they emerge victorious as one? The shadows twisted and writhed, their forms reaching out like desperate hands searching for warmth. Caleb felt a surge of icy dread, but it was quickly overwhelmed by the resolve to protect Sarah and Nick. They were in this together, and he couldn't let fear win. "Stay close," he shouted, trying to keep the rising panic at bay. The cacophony of the crowd blurred around him, voices rising in a chorus of terror as the grotesque figures loomed larger. It was as if the nightmares of their past were manifesting right in front of them, a visceral reminder of all they would rather forget. Sarah's voice trembled, but there was something fierce in her gaze. She knew they had to push through this, no other choice remained. Caleb met her eyes, feeling the pulse of their bond grounding him, a steady anchor in the chaos. The man from the crowd, this harbinger of doom, stood just beyond the shadows, his face a mask of uncertainty. "You must sing the truth. But be warned, finding your song means finding your pain, too," he urged, his voice carrying across the fray. "Let us channel that pain," Nick said, breathing heavily. "We've all had our struggles. It's time to face them." Caleb nodded, adrenaline surging. They had no time to waste. If they wanted to find the right song, they had to delve into the heart of their fears. He stepped forward, heart hammering, and took a deep breath. "We'll share our truths," he declared, voice rising over the shadows. "Together." The shadows paused, their hunger seeming to waver for just a moment, intrigued by the young trio's resilience. It was now or never. Caleb lifted the microphone again, adrenaline coursing through him as he pressed on. "Every note, every word, they come from somewhere deep," he said, the music in his soul bubbling to the surface, a symphony of shared struggles. "This isn't just about us. It's about everyone who has ever felt lost." He remembered moments from their journey, anxiety, heartbreak, the bruises from life's harsh lessons. Each recollection fueled his voice, infusing it with an emotional depth that reverberated in the air. The figures hesitated, forms flickering like candlelight. The crowd, still caught in fear, began to rise, stepping closer as something about Caleb's song ignited a spark within them. They felt it, too, the weight of their own histories swirling around them. It was real. This was their truth. "I've faced my doubts," Nick shouted, stepping forward as he joined in, his voice a low and earnest harmony. "I've struggled with my weight in this world. I've felt like I didn't belong." With every revelation, the shadows seemed to recoil, as if the light of their honesty pushed them back. "And I've battled the ghosts of losing my family." Sarah's voice rang out, raw and powerful. "The loss burns like a brand on my heart, but I refuse to let it define me." The darkness twisted, momentarily disoriented. The shadows were no longer closing in, instead, they hesitated, caught in a web of acknowledgement and recognition. "Fight back," Caleb urged, courage swelling within him. "Shine your truth. Let it break the chains of our fears." With renewed strength, he led the trio into a crescendo, their voices melded and growing stronger. Not just fighting the shadowy figures but embracing the pain, the history, and transforming it into a beacon of light. People rallied behind them, an explosion of raw emotion unleashing from the crowd. But just as it seemed they were pushing the darkness away, a deafening roar erupted from the shadows. Something much darker was awakening. Caleb's heart stuttered, and it struck him that what they had unleashed was only the beginning. "Caleb!" Sarah cried, pointing as the ground beneath their feet shook violently. The figures blended together, forming into a colossal mass, a singular entity fueled by their pasts, the pain they had so bravely faced. Caleb's breaths came shallow as they stood on the precipice of confrontation. This was no longer a concert, it was a war for their souls. "Are you ready to face what you've unleashed?" The mysterious man called out from the shadows. His voice rang with a mixture of warning and anticipation. With steely resolve, Caleb gripped the microphone tighter. "Let us finish this together." But even as they prepared for the final confrontation, a chilling thought gnawed at him. What if their darkest truths weren't the only things stirring in the darkness? Would their revelations be enough to prevail, or was there more lurking behind the shadows, waiting to be discovered? As the shadows coalesced into a massive, dark entity, Caleb's heart raced like a runaway train. This was at the climax of their journey. The darkness was alive, swirling with the weight of every unspoken fear, every long-held regret. He took a moment to gather himself, to absorb the power of his friends at his side. The festival backdrop now felt like a battleground, where hope clashed against despair. "Remember," he said, drawing Sarah and Nick closer, "we use our light to push through this darkness." Their eyes locked in agreement, a fierce determination flickering among them. They had come this far together. They would finish this together. With a deep breath, Caleb stepped forward, feeling the electric charge in the air as the mass shifted, writhing with malevolent energy. "You will not control us," he shouted, voice steady and fierce. Each word became a mantra, reverberating off the very fabric of reality. He clutched the microphone tightly, the familiar weight grounding him amidst the chaos. "We are more than our fears." He began to play a chord, raw and powerful, resonating with the pain and passion of countless stories stitched together. "And through our stories, we can find freedom," he declared, as Nick joined in, his voice resonating like a drumbeat of defiance. "I've felt lost, but my heart still beats. I've felt weak, but I will rise." The shadows shivered, a flicker of hesitation rippling through the mass. Caleb seized the moment, feeling their strength grow. "Together, we are an army of voices. A choir of truth." Sarah stepped forward, her fierce gaze cutting through doubt. "We are not defined by loss, nor fear. We are here, alive," she sang, her voice soaring through the chaos. "Every tear we shed, every sorrow shared is a testament of our strength." As the melody soared, the colossal darkness began to recede, its once menacing grip faltering against the onslaught of their joined voices. Caleb could feel the crowd behind them stirring, lifted by the anthem of their truth. A wave of energy surged through them, an unstoppable force igniting hope and healing. "Let your stories be heard," Nick called out, arms raised as he rallied the crowd. "Embrace the pain, embrace the light. Show them who we are." In that moment, he became a vibrant banner of unity, a guiding force pushing against despair. The mass of shadows thrashed in frustration, but Caleb saw it wavering. Each chord, each shared truth resonated with a fierce intensity, creating a cascading wave that rippled throughout the crowd. People stood together, forging bonds that had long been severed. And suddenly, something shifted, an awakening. Voices from the crowd gathered strength, echoing the power of their own stories. "I've lost my home but found family in this town," one voice cried. Another joined, "I grieved scars, but today I stand tall." Each new voice echoed through the air, shining brightly against the encroaching darkness. Hope mingled with belonging. They were not alone. Together, they were forging forward, a living tapestry of resilience. As melodies filled the space with shimmering light, the figure of darkness surged, trying to overtake them, but they held their ground. "You will not define us." Caleb's voice rang out, the microphone pulsing with light. "We are made of love, hope, and connection." It was then that everything shifted. With one final surge of collective energy, they struck a chord that resonated with the very essence of life. The darkness convulsed, shifting, contorting, finally bursting apart into countless sparkling fragments, dissipating into the night sky like fireflies. A hushed silence followed, the shadows finally vanquished, their haunting presence replaced with an overwhelming sense of peace and clarity. Caleb stood, panting, the echoes of their triumph ringing crystal clear, a testament that love and connection could overcome even the deepest fears. The crowd erupted into cheers. Tears of joy mixed with disbelief as they embraced, the palpable unity flooding the air around them. Caleb exchanged relieved glances with Sarah and Nick, realizing they had forged something monumental, a renewed sense of community, deep bonds of understanding, and a promise that they would weather whatever storms came their way. As the festival lights twinkled above them, a warmth flooded his heart, radiating with a newfound sense of purpose. They had faced the shadows and emerged victorious, for in each other, they found strength. "Let this be the beginning," Caleb shouted, raising his guitar triumphantly. "Let music be our anthem for unity and healing." The crowd roared in agreement, laughter and joy cascading like a symphony filling Cedar Grove. They were no longer separate, they were together, healed, transformed, and whole. And as the stars blanketed the night, dreams and possibilities glimmered brightly, heralding a new chapter for all. But before they could celebrate fully, an urgent call echoed in the air: "Don't forget. The world needs our voices, our stories." Now, dear viewers, this is the moment to show your support. You need to subscribe now to catch the next exclusive stories of transformation and triumph. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. It truly makes a difference, and we appreciate every ounce of love you give. Comment your reactions and feelings about this emotional ending. Your thoughts are our inspiration. And share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to feel this powerful transformation. Join our community and be part of the magic. Don't wait not even one more second to share. Your voice matters.